Hello, this is Dr. Theodunas, and we're back in Blender for our first simple exercise where we will try to understand a little bit better the difference between object and edit mode, but also how we can use modifiers to our advantage and benefit. Remember that I still have my screencast on the lower left corner, so you can actually understand what exactly I am pressing every time on the keyboard or on my mouse. We will start by trying to create a table, and I'm going to switch to a top orthographic view. I am going to press X to delete the cube with first select the cube, then press X to delete it. And I'm going to press Shift A to add a mesh and particularly a plane. And then I am going to press Tab to switch into edit mode. So one of the things that a lot of people working with 3D models find difficult is to understand the issue of scale. And within that, our grid on the background can actually help us. But also to understand where exactly we can find units that Blender uses. And you can definitely find this within the tab of the scene. And if I click on units, you'll see that I'm using metric system. And essentially you get a unit scale here. For most purposes, I will not try to change this in terms of the scale. So whatever you're drawing here is 1:1, so 1:1 scale. So one unit here is essentially 1 meter. The length is in meters, rotation is in degrees, mass is in kilograms, time is in seconds, and temperature is in Kelvin, which is essentially the international system of measurement. Uh, Within the 3D view, I was within edit mode, so I'll hit tab again and go into object mode, and then click again on the tab here for the object. While having the plane selected, hit tab, and then double C and scroll wheel so that I am able to select the two vertices here. Grab and Y to move them. And if I press 1, they move by 1 meter. And essentially now I have a plane of 2 by 1, which is actually a really good dimension for a dinner table. Um, we'll try and move this to 0.8 from the um, the XY base plane. So grab Z 0.8. And you see that I'm making the moves of this. When I try to move the whole object, I do it in object mode rather than in edit mode, right? So in edit mode, I'm only playing around with the mesh. And this actually has only zero width. So I'm going to add a little bit of a width to this by pressing E to extrude. And this allows me essentially immediately to provide a bit of a thickness to the table. So if this was a kind of solid table, I will go with 0.03. On the z-axis, it didn't exactly work. Well, let me try again. If I go 0.3, it gets there. Well, I don't need to press the initial 0, so grab z 0.03. And there you go. The other issue I have is that, well, I was moving actually the table before. So you'll see that its origin, which is this dot here, is actually offsetted compared to the rest of the table. So I'll try and fix that and place the origin actually at the center of the lower part of the table. And to do that, I will select, shift, and right click and left click with my C, sorry. So I have essentially the lower part of the table, the lower face of the table selected. I will press Shift S to open up the cursor menu, and I will take cursor to selected as my option. And immediately you'll see that the cursor is placed at the center of the face. Go on to edit object mode, outside of edit mode, and then set origin of the object to 3D cursor. And why did I do that, right? So I did it so that I am completely at the lower face. If I try to say set origin to geometry, you'll see that the origin actually moves at the center of the object, the kind of center of mass. I'll take it back to the origin of the 3D cursor. So I'll explain first how we can create the legs of the table by going into edit mode, deselecting everything, then selecting the one of the vertices, and then Shift S cursor to selected. So then the cursor jumps to that vertex. And whatever I create now with Shift A will be placed onto the center of the cursor there. So I added another plane and then hit Tab to go in. And from that point of view, I can essentially create kind of rotate around to delete those 2 bits. So I will press X and I get a selection of what I need to delete. Either vertices or edges will work. Well, I should have selected vertices actually, so that I only get this line here. And if I base my selection completely on one vertex, right? So I only have one vertex now in the object. I will create with E, with extrude, and on the Y axis, a 0.4, so 4 centimeters width. And then on the x-axis, 0.4. And you see that rectangle is positioned at a distance from where I want it to be. So what I'll do is set origin to geometry. So the origin jumps there. Then Shift S for selection to cursor. So whatever I have selected, which is the whole object, will actually jump now to the cursor. And from that point of view, I want to move this 10 centimeters inside here and 10 centimeters inside here. I'll try and actually draw here so you can see it, right? I'll try and draw 10 centimeters there and 10 centimeters there, right? So this whole thing needs to move over there. What I activated now is what we call grease pencil, and it's very useful essentially to create annotations that are not part of your model. And you can also write, for example, letters and everything else. And it's very useful for you to keep notes and explain essentially a model to whatever you want. I'll use now the annotation eraser to delete all of this. Again, the middle click actually expands the selection. And go back to selection here. So to go 10 centimeters in and in the XY axis, grab X 0.1, grab Y 0.1. And you see here that kind of like the shape disappeared. So to be able to see it again, I will introduce the idea of shading by pressing, when I have nothing else selected, if I press Z, I get this radial menu again where I can see things wireframe or rendered or solid. So if it's wireframe, you can actually see kind of like an X-ray version of the model. So now that is the tabletop, and that will be one of the legs. So, but what I want to do is, instead of actually creating one leg and then having to copy it, I want to be at the position where whatever I'm creating here actually gets created also on this side. So to do that, I will move the center of this leg somewhere in the middle. So I'll try to create my origin here, and then use a mirror technique. So whatever is happening over there also happens on this side of the table. And from that point of view, I can be much more productive. And to do that, we will introduce the two ideas. One is that we can do it with direct modeling. So first of all, I will go into the tabletop and choose these two vertices, and then with Shift S, go cursor to selected. Select then the leg outline, then have the cursor over there, and then go set origin to 3D cursor. Now, if we do this, and when I go inside the model in edit mode, I make sure all of my 4 vertices are selected, and I press E, and then I go minus 0.83. You see now that actually creates a leg towards the top, which is not what I want. And this is because for this particular object, the extrusion will happen on the global scale, essentially, on the global transform orientation here. So if I press E and I go 1 meter, go down. If I go, so extrusion actually happens towards the bottom. And if I go E -1, it goes on the opposite direction. So sometimes you need to check essentially where your global orientation will take place during extrusion. So E, and I go 0.83. Press A to select everything. And if I press Control M, so to mirror, I have everything selected. I press right click within edit mode, and then I press interactive mirror. And through this, I am able to actually to choose a mirror axis, X, Y, or Z. So I go with Y. No, that's not it. X. So you see that directly my leg, table leg jumps on the other side. But then because I mirror and then the original object doesn't stay in place, what it should do is I should copy it in place by duplicating it by Shift D and then pressing escape. So it means that within the same kind of space, I have 2 objects. So press escape again. Then right click, mirror, and then I go interactive mirror, Y, X, and I get this. Select all again with A, double A, and then interactive mirror again. and then try the no, I should actually double them first. So Shift D, and the other thing I also have set is that everything happens around the 3D cursor, right? So not the median point of the object. So I should actually move the 3D cursor to the origin of the table over there, which is my, select again the object that contains the legs, double them by Shift D, press Escape to locate them again at their initial position, and then right click to go mirror vertices, interactive mirror, and with the Y axis I actually get everything at the correct place. Now this interactive mirror thing means that whatever I created on one side, one corner, actually is contained on all four corners of the table. But there is a much more, let's say, elegant way to do the same thing. And what I'll do is I'll double the table by copying and pressing then 5. So I'll take it 5 meters on that side. And then I'll go into the legs and delete 3 of them, and I only have the fourth. And I'll introduce essentially the idea of modifiers. So I'll go into this hex key that you can see here. So modifiers essentially take a geometry and apply various transformations in a very cool manner. So the modifier we're looking for here is a mirror modifier. And immediately when I activate it, you see that I get an x-axis, right? If I put it on the y-axis, you'll see that it mirrors along this point again. So I get essentially a mirror along this point. So the y-axis is passing through here, and then the mirror happens that way. If I get the z-axis, then that's the plane, and the mirror happens that way. But what I want initially is the x-axis over there. But before I activate this, I will take again the center of the object onto the center of the tabletop. So my leg will move that center over there. To do that, I will bring the cursor at the center of the table, click on leg, and then origin, set origin to 3D cursor. So immediately you'll see that that's essentially the center of any mirror I want to do. Keep having the leg selected, and I will go to modifier, edit, and mirror on the x-axis. And if I press the Y, I essentially get very beautifully 4 legs. Now, the beauty with this modifier is that essentially all 3 other copies are linked copies of that initial leg. So if I select, for example, the lower part, and I press S for scale, and well, I'm now trying to scale that bit, but I haven't changed my pivot point. You see, it's still the 3D cursor, but I'm going to take it now to median point, right? So essentially the scale then happens over there. So let's say I want to really make this leg slender and a bit more elegant, let's say. So I will scale them to 0.6. And immediately you see that they have a bit of a better standing and elegance compared to the others. And we can also create and any kind of chains I do to the legs propagates essentially to the other three linked copies that are created through my activated mirror object. And this is actually particularly useful if we try to do any kind of, for example, um, textile or fashion or clothing simulation, because we can actually model the clothing on one side and the mirror will actually follow on the other. So here I want to also introduce a little bit of a curvature on the leg, so that is not that bit of a corner. So I will introduce a bevel, and a bevel situation actually creates this kind of cutout. Let's see if I have another option here. No, I'll stay with that. And you see essentially the bevel actually is applied after the mirror, right? So I have the mirror first, whereas if I change it, if I change the sequence, I will get a completely different result, right? So this is works as a stack, right? So the mirror is applied first, and then the bevel is applied to all of the data that comes out of the mirror kind of idea. I get a really big amount, so let's go 0.5 actually. So change a little bit how much the bevel is applied. And I can also change how many segments I have. So you'll see that I now get 4 segments, which gives me more of a rounded kind of edge and idea on this. But I also still get those legs not really being very well cornered on that interface with the table corner. So we will introduce another level of segmentation, essentially, of the mess. And to do that, we will use what is called essentially a loop. So if I click on Control R, or you'll see that my menu here changes when I go into edit mode, right? So I get essentially more menus that allow me to fix the table. If I go into mesh, I get a lot of tools that allow me essentially to transform, mirror, snap, merge, split, or work essentially with those meshes. And then I can operate also at the level of the vertex, edge, and face, depending on what I have selected. And a lot of times you need to actually play a bit around to understand what is on offer here every time, right? So we will take some exercises before we reach a level where we can fully understand all of the allowed tools. So the one we're looking for is the loop cut and slide, which if I press here, I will take towards the edge of the table. And if I go very close, you see that I minimize essentially the rotation that I get around that. So from that point of view, I get a much more rounded edge essentially on the table, on the leg. And one other way I could actually cheat a little bit on this is if I go onto side view, select all of the edges on the top, and grab and move it within within my tabletop. And there you go. you have your table ready. Um, you can change its view through this rendered view or press on solid, and you get a solid view, and your table is ready. Let me try to also erase this before I save, and you'll find this file as well within our files onto Canvas. Thank you again, and let's go to the next exercise.